Oh man, how are things? How's LA treating you?
Life is great, man. I love being back in LA. I spent so much time traveling around. I've lived in Dallas, Portland, the Silicon Valley, but being back in LA is like nothing else.
Amazing. I was there actually last week, and I missed all the old stomping grounds. It's good to see the city slowly coming back. It's been a rough couple of years in the entertainment business for them, but yeah, I'm obviously a 15-year vet in LA, and I'm actually right now in rainy, weirdly cold Miami, and it's kind of dark, hence why you can't see me very well. I didn't plan for not having like lighting during the day. But good to connect, and I'd love to jump right into all things DEI.
Let's do it.
Cool. Well, all right. So those that are listening, you may know Jabari, or if you don't know him, he's worked in the agency world for years, worked at Nike, at Google, at Lyft, now at Westbrook. You're also a founder of the Monday Night Mentorship, 2 years old now. I'm not sure you guys made a pre or during or before a pandemic, but tell the crowd a little more about M&M and in case of your mission there and how it came about.
Sure. Monday Night Mentorship came up about 2 years ago, right as the pandemic hit. It was founded by myself and my best friend and also business partner, Julian Duncan, who is a CMO of the Houston Rockets right now. And both of us as leaders were trying to deal with, downsizing at the time of the pandemic. I was working for a rideshare company. And as you can imagine, that was hit pretty hard when the pandemic came, and we had to lay off quite a few people. And that was the biggest layoff I'd ever done in my career, 25-year career. And to be honest, it depressed me. When you have really talented, great people that you have to say goodbye to, it really hits you hard, especially when you're letting them go in a pandemic and we did not know what was to expect. So, we decided to basically go on LinkedIn and say, we're here to help. We did not know what to do, but we just said we would throw something out there and say, hey, we're here to support people. And we'll be here every Monday to mentor you, to provide guidance, support, advice, look at resumes, anything you want, every Monday at 5:30. Put that out on LinkedIn, and was thinking a few people would come and I'd have a few little round tables. I probably got 1,000 emails, probably 5,000 responses on LinkedIn, people from all angles telling me I need help. I want to be a part of Monday Night Mentor. I want to be a part of Monday Night Mentorship. My counterparts and people that I've worked with throughout my career came out and said, how can I support you? I want to help mentor people. And I was overwhelmed, obviously, first and foremost, but quickly, a woman on our team now on our board, her name is Sari D. She reached out and said, hey, I'm a coach. I coach people of color. I can help you through this. Here's what you need to do. And so we put together a private LinkedIn group. We put together a Zoom for every Monday, and the rest has been history. Every Monday since 2 years ago, March, we've been getting people together with about 10 mentors, people, CMOs, presidents, and executive coaches from all over, as well as now we have over 3,500 people in the broader community, and we meet with about 150 people every Monday.
Amazing. Well, congrats. Well done. Actually, the reason we connected was because one of our board members, Hope, was at Monday Night Mentorship and raved about you and what you guys have built. And that's how we got. So it keeps connecting people, even though we weren't looking for jobs on our side. Right. I guess the question I have for you is, now that it's evolved, now that the market's shifted, now it's really more of a employees market. The FTE market is nuts. Everyone has it's the Great Resignation, all these different reasons people want to basically figure out their new path. As the tenor changed, is it more about what to think about their path and how to maximize their value? What are the things you guys talk about these days?
Yeah, so the purpose of Monday Night Mentorship is to be a career accelerant as well as a mentorship network. Right. So we are not a job placement company. People don't come to us because they need jobs. They come to us because they need to get unstuck. They need to find a way to go from where they are currently to the next step. And I feel like there are a lot of support out there for really young people, young in their careers, fresh in their jobs, job fairs, internships, a lot of support. You also get additional support when you're a leader. You know, when I became a VP at Lyft, it came with a mentor, it came with executive coaches, and so on and so forth. There's a big group in the middle that are lost. They have nothing, nobody. They don't know how to negotiate. They don't know how to run their one-on-ones properly. They don't know how to manage up, manage sideways, manage down. Many of them becoming new leaders and don't really know how to do that. Some of it is about interviewing and thinking about telling your story. Sometimes that comes in a panel. Sometimes that comes in an interview. So really just equipping people with the tools they need in order to like take them from where they are and getting unstuck to really where they want to be.
I love it. Well, it's an amazing platform, and yeah, it sounds like it came out of a time when people need it the most. But it's gonna pay dividends for people for the next decade, hopefully. Plus, that's great.
Well, not just that, it's paid dividends for me and for my group of mentors. Yeah. We didn't realize how much value we would get out of being mentors and how much knowledge we learn when I hear a Jason White, who's now MTV CMO at Viacom, give advice to somebody who's fresh out of college. I am taking that advice as well. When one of our executive coaches is giving advice on negotiation, I promise you I used that in my negotiation in my last job. So we are getting just as much out of it as mentors as the group of mentees is getting out of it.
Never stop learning, and you guys have built an amazing network. I'd love to talk now a moment about you. So part of this network, you have this amazing group of people, but you're also at an amazing company. Westbrook has become, quickly become one of the most sought after companies in all of Hollywood, really anything in media and marketing and content. How did you first connect with Westbrook and the team, and how did you essentially get to the position you are today? And really, now that you're there, and now you're obviously heading marketing, how do you guys highlight diversity in your projects?
So weirdly enough, I have a long relationship with Westbrook before I even knew I had a relationship with Westbrook. When I was at Google, the Will Smith team at the time came with an opportunity because Will wanted to launch his YouTube. And I worked on Google Pixel at the time. So we were like, hey, this is a great opportunity to partner with Will and tell stories with our phone. And so we signed a deal while I was working at Google with Will and apparently the team that was starting off as Westbrook, and I didn't know this. Then I moved over to Lyft. It just so happened that the founder at Lyft is really good friends with the president at Westbrook, Brad. And so he connected us early on and said, hey, this team is doing great content. I'm like, oh, wait, I know the Will Smith company. I should know these guys. Oddly enough, 6 months later, at Lyft, we had a content series called Undercover Lyft, where we would get celebrities, they'd put them into a Lyft dressed up as in disguise, and they'd pick up people and have a lot of fun. So the Westbrook team came to us and said, wow, what if we did a version of that with Will Smith to celebrate the Bad Boys movie? And that movie was Bad Boys for Life. And they pitched us Bad Boys for Lyft and had Will pick up people in the Porsche from the car, drive around. It was amazing content. And that really connected me to what the Westbrook team can do, what the power of Will Smith can do around content and storytelling, and really the power of entertainment, really, and as it relates to business. And it was one of the best things that we did while I was there. Fast forward, pandemic hit. It was time for me to think about something new. And it just so happened that Westbrook was looking for, I think they were looking for a VP of content. And I said, wait a minute, I think I could help you with something a lot more. And so here I am now. I just hit my year anniversary, and I'm the SVP of marketing.
Congrats, that's huge. And in that, so are you guys picking out projects with diversity in mind? Is that like one of the first lenses you guys look through stuff, or how do you guys think about things?
No, what's funny is when you are diverse, it's different to how you think about diversity, right? We're a Black-owned company, family-owned company, but we want to tell stories that connect with the widest amount of audiences, right? And because we're a global company, our CEOs from Japan, some of our owners are Latin descent and are Black-owned. So when we think about global stories, people in Japan want to see stories with Japanese people in them, and stories about Japanese culture and the authenticity there. Same with the Latin culture and so on and so forth. So it's only in the US do you think about this sort of weirdness diversity thing. We want to make sure we're telling stories where people can see themselves and see their stories and global impact stories that connect with the widest audience. And in order to do that, I need to be able to have those insights and people around me to help tell those authentic stories.
Yeah, no, obviously storytelling is you did it, I'm sure, for years at Pixel, creating those moments. And even, the moment I actually hadn't seen that Will Smith Porsche one, but I think right away, I think of Mike Lowry in the 90s. I'm 12 years old at age. I'm idolizing, all things Mike, and then obviously watching Martin Lawrence. But it's storytelling. And you guys have, I'm a huge fan of Cobra Kai, which is nothing, there's no diversity angle. It's just great content that happens to have diverse people in it. So, very, very cool.
Yeah, we'd say our mission is to empower artists to tell stories that connect with the world, right? And we're working with all kinds of artists, from Will to Liza Koshy to Alicia Keys and so on and so forth. And their audiences are very diverse. So we need to be able to have that content and platforms that allow them to reach their audiences.
Well, speaking of empowerment, probably in a similar vein to Monday Night Mentorship, you are on the board of the Marcus Graham Project.
Yes.
It's a nonprofit that has a mission to mentor and train diverse individuals, help them excel in the media industry, specifically in our business people that are watching. Basically, how did you is that something that happened post M&M, or is that before that? When that happened?
No, Marcus Graham Project was one of the first things that I've ever jumped into as it related to helping people in the diversity and inclusion space. So I've been on that board, I want to say 10 years. And they've continued to grow. That's led by Lincoln Steffens, and he is a servant to this community. He's spent his whole life really inspired by the movie Boomerang. And a lot of young Black people my age, I'm not gonna tell you my age, but who grew up with the movie Boomerang, understand that was the thing that got us into marketing, right? If you haven't watched the movie Boomerang, go watch it with Eddie Murphy, Halle Berry. Beautiful and funny film, but it also was one of the first films where I could see myself. I wanted to be Marcus Graham. He was a smooth, smart, handsome Black executive running his own advertising agency and marketing company, married to Halle Berry, of course. And I was like, that's what I want to be. I want to have that suit, that house, and I want to marry Halle Berry. And that set me off into my career of advertising and marketing. And so when I heard there was a program called the Marcus Graham Program, and it was helping other young people of color break into the advertising industry, I'm like, sign me up. This is the reason I'm in advertising, and I will do anything that you ask to help further your mission. So we've been working together for now over a decade. We put together a program at Google while I was there. And what that does is give people exposure. It brings young people into the advertising world by giving them exposure to these big companies with real projects. So we came into Google with a core team of young people, and they worked on a real project over the summer that delivered real results to Google. And they got exposure. And of course, Google was exposed to a new diverse audience as well.
I love that. And I guess for those that are listening, what's the best way to get involved? Is to go to the website, or some sort of way they can also mentor or donate?
Absolutely. Check out MGP Project, Marcus Graham Project, and or MondayNightMentorship.com.
Love it. You got to the plug. That was good. So 10 years. That's a decade, and obviously two years in the last since the pandemic. What has the conversation of DEI and DEIB, everyone has different acronyms now, belonging, et cetera. How has that evolved from when you first started talking about it to today? Like what do you see the biggest changes that have happened?
Wow. The biggest change, again, when you're old, my first job out of college was at Wieden and Kennedy in Portland, Oregon. Portland, Oregon probably had the fewest amount of Black people I've ever seen in any state at that time. We didn't have a Black radio station. There was no Black clubs or bar, anything to go to. And Wieden and Kennedy was very similar at that time. And so I was just happy to have a seat at the table, to be in a place like a Wieden and Kennedy, and I was treated really well there. It was a beautiful place and a beautiful experience. But I noticed that it was only me, one other creative, the mail room, and the front desk. we're the only Black people. And so you become your own little Black employee network, right? There was no such thing as that when I was growing up. Fast forward to Nike, you get to a bigger pool and bigger world, probably 10 years from that. You have a bigger audience, right? Bigger people, bigger group of diverse people. You have employee networks that you can tap into. And I remember even there, that Black employee network felt like we have no Black people, but it was still, 150 of us compared to 3 of us, 10 years before. Fast forward another 10 years from Nike to Google, and Google's massive. You get to there, they have every other intersectional network, the LGBTQ, they have the Black employee network, the abled, body network, and so on and so forth. I'm like, wow, like look how far we've come, from where I started. But yet I would talk to young people and they would remind me, no, we are nowhere. We're still nowhere. And so that was really eye-opening to me. And that moved me, once I started to see that progression, it moved me from asking other people, what are they gonna do, to what am I gonna do? And that question alone helped me and my team and teammates start Monday Night Mentorship. For so long, I was living in the world of like, oh, what are they gonna do? This place is not diverse. What are the leaders gonna do? What are you guys doing about it? Until I was at my son's baseball game and I was doing the same thing with the umpire, like, oh, this umpire stinks. What is this umpire talking about? And I looked up and there's a little sign on the fence behind the umpire that says, before you complain, have you volunteered yet? And it completely changed my perspective on everything. And so now whenever I think about complaining and whenever I think about diversity, I ask myself, what am I going to do about it? Until I can have a clear answer on that, definitely can't ask for anybody to do anything else.
No, it's a great way to look at life and look at the problem. So you had to have had over the last 10 plus years in the business moments where you had to essentially bridge a gap, where there had to be people that you were around that someone said thanks for sharing, that's great. How is it that you've dealt with people that maybe didn't have the same views on DEI, that were maybe more stubborn or old school? Did you try to convince them? Is it more of like how do you, for those that are listening, hopefully everyone at this point understands the importance of it. For those that have either bosses or coworkers that don't, how have you addressed that in the past?
I don't care about people that don't care about DEI. I think about them as like the corners of the world. Like think politics, right? Imagine me trying to convince someone on a far left or far right of my opposite opinion. It's most likely going to be a lost cause. But there in the middle are a ton of people who don't know, but want to know, aren't very far in their journey, but are looking to accelerate that journey. That's where I want to spend all of my time and energy, on people who have the will, but don't have the way. And there's such a big group of those people to focus on first. I'm hoping that then group overpowers the people who don't know and they begin to come back to the middle. The other thing is, I'm starting with myself, like be the change. It's about, if I can embody this, then I can hopefully inspire others to embody the same, and if everybody started to think about themselves, we think about big change as opposed to thinking about each individual person making individual change, which will result in big change.
Yeah, the incrementality effect, 100%. So pursuant to that, let's put a crystal ball. It's 2021 and 2022. By 5 years or 2030, is there? Do you think we've solved a good portion of it? Do you think we're still going to fight this way for the next 30, 40 years? I guess what's your kind of optimism or pessimism?
I'm always optimistic. I believe that there's always change happening, and that change hopefully is about progression. But there's a long way to go. In last year's wake of George Floyd murder, a lot of companies made comments about what they're going to do for diversity and how they're going to support their companies. And a lot of them had big grand visions and goals. But when only 3% of Black people are in leadership roles, many companies, there's 1 or 2, but the company's big grand goal is to increase diversity by 50%. Awesome. You're going to go from 2 to 4 people. That's going to be amazing. Sounds big and grand.
Yeah.
It's terrible, you know.
Yeah.
And so we're only 3% of leadership roles. But when you think about what drives culture, what's actually moving the needle with a dollar, it is diverse people, diverse stories, diverse companies, diverse entertainment places. And so until we start to get our due that has really given these companies the platforms that they have, think of a Nike. The reason Nike is what it is because not because it just does great work and great shoes, but because it's gotten insights from its athletes who are primarily people of color that help them be the company that they are. And so same thing in all these other companies. When I was at Wieden & Kennedy, although I was the only Black person, I was giving them the insights of Black culture. I was telling them what's going on with music. I was an athlete. I was telling them how basketball players think. Those counterparts took it and then turned those into advertisements that they get paid for and get Cannes Lions for. But the real winner in that is that young Black kid, that young athlete, the Kobe's, the LeBrons that were giving them the insights into the culture, into those athletes that this big company then went and ran with. So soon we will get our due for the impact we've made in a lot of these companies.
Yeah, but not just the impact is from a culture perspective across all of pop culture, but the consumer. I mean, just the nature of the changing landscapes of the U.S. and the world. The old world makes no, the old guard makes no sense because the consumer is increasingly more diverse every single generation. So
Exactly.
I appreciate the championing of it. I want to get really tactical here, and I don't know this answer, and I would be helpful for our company as well, the company listening. There is, and I've learned over the last couple of years as the education has become more prevalent, people have sought this out, implicit bias in interviewing. What are ways to counteract the tendency of people hitting it off with those that are similar to them, based on what university they went to or what neighborhood they were, what the college or, hobbies. When you're looking at that in terms of M&M's stage, what are ways to make sure that people don't even think, oh, I didn't even know I was picking people that were just similar to me as opposed to thinking about diversity first?
Again, I'm starting with those companies. I'm starting with the companies I'm in and then trying to reach out to other companies that care. But there are a lot of things you can do on the company side to make sure you do as best you can to take bias out of the process. One of the things we do at Westbrook is ensure there's a diverse panel of people that are being interviewed, that are the interviewer. I make sure when we do recruiting, we start with diversity. So I say, let's start with the diverse pipeline first. And then let's start to supplement with broader network. The way I think about recruiting is, almost like chocolate chip ice cream, right? There's a bunch of chocolate chips and the nice vanilla ice cream. And if you scoop in, you might get a one with a bunch of chocolate chips. Or if you scoop in, you might get a thing of just vanilla ice cream, depending on where you scooped, right? And so sometimes we just take, from recruiting, we just take a big scoop and hopefully there's a good candidate in there, but many times there's not many chocolate chips in there. And so we have to do a better job of making sure we're getting the slate starts with diversity.
I love it. Well, so pursuant to that, you did an interview with your friend and partner, Julian Duncan, which I actually had as a CMO of the Jaguars. It must be the Rockets, might be relatively new.
Yeah, he just got a new job. He went from the Jaguars to the Rockets. So shout out to my man, Julian Duncan.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, amazing franchises. So you had an interview where you guys talked about how to turn your career into a hero's journey. That sounds really profound. What does that mean? And any tips for those listening?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a couple of things that when we were thinking about giving advice to people on a journey, one, we realized that it is a journey that's going to have ups and downs. As you get older, when you're young, you think about the now. As you get older, you can look back and see the track that you sort of went on. And so we want to let people know it's a long and treacherous journey and ones that you will go through lots and ups and downs on. Two, the most important part is that you are the hero. Right. And the hero's journey, you are the hero of your own journey. And so the most important part is about knowing yourself. You are the consumer of your marketing plan. and really knowing who you are, what drives you, what moves you. And as we started to look at Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, we're like, oh, this is just like a career. Like you got to have, people that join you on that journey that help support you, that we would call stakeholders, or, your crew that support you on that journey. You're going to have pitfalls and big monsters that come, to try to take you down, and that happens plenty in our careers. And eventually you get back to the beginning, right? Where you can see all the things, you bring all of those learnings and spoils back to your hometown and to your people. And that's what Julie and I were seeing in our careers and ourselves, is like, man, we've gone through some crazy stuff and had some great stories to tell. Now let's go back home and make sure that other people don't fall in those same pitfalls. Make sure everybody knows the shortcuts and little things that you should watch out for in their journey, making sure they understand or help them with their team of a band of brothers and sisters that are going to help them on this journey, right? And so when we looked at that, which is referenced a lot, the hero's journey, we just thought it was a perfect way to tell a story.
Yeah, it's a great allegory. I mean, life can be long or short, but life, is long. It's years piled from moments throughout the day, and yeah, well, it may not be a 2-hour, epic, watching Game of Thrones episode where you're going through that, but yeah, just the small micro things that each day pile up and tell a narrative of where you are. And yeah, I think it's a great way to think about, like, be the protagonist of your own life and your own corporate journey. That's very cool.
Yeah, and answer the call. Like I think the hardest part for people, and the most important part in the hero's journey, is when that hero answers the call. That's the first thing. If you think about the Matrix, we're living our random mundane lives, and then there's an opportunity given to you to make a decision. Do you go on this journey or not? And if you know you're within the hero's journey, you start to recognize these little moments that can take your life and career in a new direction, and you take advantage of those.
Well said. And yeah, I love all of your all your references, from Boomerang to Bad Boys to.
I'm in entertainment.
Yeah, we have to. So one thing that we just did, and I was curious, I have a question after I give you a little statement. So we just hired, and I think she might be listening, hopefully. We just hired our head of ethical media to drive equity to content creators. So we think of creators as multicultural small businesses. It's music, editing, lighting, every part of it. It takes a village to create content. So companies are hiring chief diversity officers for the internal improvements. Do you see media companies creating external roles to make sure equity is happening for creators, for platforms, for publishers? Someone told me about this role, and I fell in love with the idea of it all, and Target as well. Have you heard about this as something that you think that is a future-facing external as opposed to just internal?
Absolutely. I think you're seeing it, in placement agencies. You're seeing it with recruiters. You're seeing it with companies that are really working with creators and themselves. They're trying to find, make sure people have their due respect and money, and they're getting paid for their copywriting and TikTok and dances and so on and so forth. So there's tons of work going on with equity and inclusion, and hopefully diversity as well as a part of that. What I'm excited about, and why I want to change the DEI acronym, I think I've talked about this before, but I want it to be DIME, because I want to add an M in there for mentorship, because I believe that is something that is missed in all aspects of life. It's done really well in sports, but it's not done well in the corporate environment as it relates to diversity and inclusion. So I want more mentorship, because then I believe that creates a flywheel of have people and a sort of a pipeline of people coming through in an organization or an industry.
As a sports fan, I love it. I think dropping dimes is the thing. So I think we'll make sure that acronym sticks. I think it's really smart. I appreciate it.
I love it.
Well, cool. Well, so you mentioned a moment ago about the social platforms, etc. So on the last call, if you have that tail end of it, a question happened where talk about which social platform, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube. I don't know. You came from YouTube before. Is doing the most, or not even doing the most, but is any instances or things you think of that have led the way? So when you were at YouTube, were they thinking about cultural innovations? I'm sure you guys have partnered with Snapchat and everybody else. Anything in your experience you've seen?
Nothing that stands out right now. I love the TikTok algorithm because it's more equitable in the sense that more people can get their content seen. So that's something I want to learn more about in terms of how algorithms work. But I think that there's a big opportunity for more equity. I think they're doing a better job with diversity and inclusion as it relates to a lot of these platforms. But I'm not positive on the equity side of things. And that's something that I really want to dig into as they start to create opportunities for creators to monetize their work. I'd like to see the analytics about who they're monetizing and if they're monetizing equitably.
Well, every single platform, some are later to the game than others, I have some sort of initiative or division doing this. They have to, and it's the right thing, but also I think the market expects it and the consumers expect it. TikTok, I'm not sure if you're friendly at all with the Macro crew of Charles King's company.
Yes.
Phenomenal group, amazing people over there. So actually, they did a tremendous. Actually, no, I think another third thing now. They did the first of the Black Creators Fund, which is essentially a way to give grants to small kind of SMB, small medium-sized business creators. They just did Latinx, which broke all these kind of records for people that are wanting to be a part of the TikTok piece. And I think AAPI might be the next one, if I'm not mistaken, through M88. I guess in your POV, is it important because you guys basically have creators as big as some of the biggest stars in the world? Do you see an incubation happening in your companies that you work with that maybe kind of similar to what you see on the platforms?
Absolutely. I mean, we don't create like Black creator funds and that sort of thing. We just work with all creators. What I'm excited about is when there's it doesn't have to be an initiative. What I worry about on some of these initiatives is the person who started that initiative leaves, the funding for those kind of things leave. It happens for a nice little period of time, but it's nothing that sustains. It never sustains when it's an initiative. Those types of things need to be a catalyst into a way of working versus it's separate programs. And they need to be separate programs now to be that accelerant. But I'm excited when it's a way of working. And that's the way we work at Westbrook. It's like we are working with global creators from all kinds. When we're launching our film, King Richard, go see King Richard in theaters. It's a global film for all audiences. And so we're working with creators to bring all their various and diverse audiences to bear with their point of view on this film, right? It's not a film for Black people. It's not a film for athletes. It's not a film for young women. It is a film for all people. And we have to find those creators and assets and show them how this relates to their communities and make them a part of it.
Well, King Richard's a family dynamic. It's obviously one of the most famous ones with also the success of the Williams sisters. I think you have a family. You have kids, right?
I do. Are they boys, 12 and 13.
Are they on the platforms? Are they on TikTok? Are they making content?
They are. My oldest likes to just scroll for content. My youngest is the creator. So he's dancing. He's, using all the different effects. He's the creator of the family and keeps me, up to date as to what's what. It's great to have teenagers now. It's a gift and a curse. But one of the best things about it is how they think about their friends and diversity and how they think about race and inclusion. I have boys that are mixed race. So they have a different perspective about who they are, where they fit in the world, and the sense of diversity and inclusion. So I'm learning about how they're viewing it and seeing if I can accelerate their views till today instead of waiting for them to be president.
Well, it's really cool perspective, and obviously they're family first, but they're also a mini focus group. They can tell you what things are cool or not. They can tell you that's not cool anymore.
No, well, that's an easy focus group because they just say, no, that's not cool. No, that's not cool. No, that's not cool. So I just assume nothing I do is cool enough for my sons. But if I get there when they say it's cool, I promise I'm gonna post it like crazy.
I'm pretty sure with the companies you've worked with and obviously with Will now that they think that dad's pretty damn cool. So hopefully that's the case.
I think they think Jaden is cooler for them,
Yeah. But I know Jaden should be cool by association.
Right.
So with 1 minute-ish left, wrapping up the year, what are the things you're looking most forward to professionally, personally, as we head into hopefully a quasi post-pandemic year, knock on wood?
Yes, I am most excited about team and getting my team together. I'm a team sport athlete. I started Westbrook in the pandemic in the Silicon Valley. So now that I'm here, we're built out our team. We have a strategy. We're going. We've been working remotely for a year, grinding. I'm excited about getting the team together and people together. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm a chronic high fiver. You know, I'm always hugging and high fiving folks, like, and I miss that energy, that wavelength of team sort of support that you're on when you're sort of on this rocket ship. You know, when you're excelling and you're creating as fast as we are, to do that remotely is really hard. So imagine what we can do when we're together. That's what I'm most excited about. And when I think about other people with that same, you know, energy, I'm excited for the world to just take off again.
Oh, I love it. Sage advice. I see Chris playing us off with the music here, but Chris and I just did a nearly 100-person event for our company who hadn't met, half of them hadn't met each other on the West Coast. And yeah, the energy that I'd say previous years, if we had a Friday night event, no one would show up. But now it was like, oh my God, everyone has to come together on Friday night. But yeah, I just that energy of people being able to high five and see each other is palpable, and it definitely propels people, you know, through tough weeks in Q4.
Absolutely does.